Today I'm sharing what I read in November and what I'm reading in December. Welcome back to Candlewick Library. I'm going to start today with what I read in November. I'm going to do this like I did last month. I'm not going to give a star rating. I'm just going to tell you my thoughts on each book. So the first book I finished in November, I was supposed to finish in October. I was reading it with my daughters and we were trying to have it done before the end of October, but we didn't finish it until the 2nd of November. And that was Canterville's Ghost. My daughters did not seem to like this as much as I did. I don't think my oldest daughter hated it. I think she liked parts of it, but neither of them were that into it. I still think this book is really funny and really cute. Next, I reread When We Were Young and Brave by Hazel Gaynor. I read this with my book club with my mom and my aunt. I read this when it first came out and I did like it a lot. I think the three of us all really like Hazel Gaynor's writing and her stories, and this one was really good. It wasn't my favorite from her, but I really liked it. It tells the story of the children of missionaries and other people that are in a school in China while their families are on missions and doing different things. When the Japanese come in during World War II and they take them and put them in a camp. The characters end up in the camp that the Eric Little, who I really love, was put into. It's where he died. And so I found that this was a really interesting perspective in World War II. During our book club discussion, we talked about why we read so many books from World War II. And I was saying how it's one of those things that there's so many elements to it. There are so many stories to tell and perspectives to gain that it really doesn't, to me, get old. I know to some people it does. To me, it doesn't. I would say with this one, the reason that it's not my favorite is probably just a few of the things that are in it that are really hard to read about. Besides the normal cruelty to children and people in general in these camps, it also has cruelty to animals. It also has death of children, and it has rape. So if those are things that you cannot read about, then I would stay away from this one, but it really is a really good story and she's a great writer. That was actually the book club selection for October, but because our book club wasn't until the second week of November, I put it off until the very beginning of November because I had so many books I wanted to read in October. So then I had our book club pick for November, which was An Old-Fashioned Girl by Louisa May Alcott. And this was one of the books I was able to use for my Read It or Get Rid of It project because I've had this book for a very long time. And I don't know why I hadn't got around to reading it yet because she is one of my favorite authors. And I had a feeling I would really love it. This book tells the story of a young girl that lives in the country and comes to visit friends in the city. And so it kind of shows the difference between the way she was raised and the way all these other kids in the city are raised and the influence that she's able to have on their family. I think it's going to make for a really good discussion in my book club, but I would say that I didn't love it as much as Little Women. I did enjoy it, and I thought it was a really sweet story. I enjoyed the characters. There were a couple of parts that I really loved, and especially one part where, to avoid spoilers, but there's a part where a grandma is having the children pick out items from her past, and she's telling the stories of those items. And I really loved that chapter. So I think it's a worthwhile book to read. It's just, I don't love it as much as Little Women. The next book I read was Can't Help Falling by Courtney Walsh. This was the first book by Courtney Walsh I've read. And I already have some Christmas books by her, so I'm hoping I like them more than I liked this. Now, I did not dislike this. I thought it was a cute story in a lot of ways. It was a clean romance. I think I went into it thinking it was Christian romance, that there was going to be a lot of Christian elements in it, and there weren't. So that might have thrown me off a little bit. But I didn't always like the main girl. I liked a lot of things about her, but I didn't always like everything about her. And just because of a personal experience, I find it very hard to think of firemen as romantic because my first husband was a fireman. The love interest in this book is a fireman. And so I think that affected my enjoyment of it. That wouldn't affect maybe your enjoyment of it. And so in this, she has a secret podcast where she gives relationship advice, even though she's not in a relationship, and she runs a bookshop. I didn't feel like there was enough of the bookshop. I felt like the main character was a little silly a lot of the times. So like I said, I thought it was a cute romance. It was, I didn't hate it. I didn't dislike it. I just didn't love it. The next book, however, I absolutely loved. This was one of my favorites of the year, probably. This will be one of my favorites for a long time. It's Every Woman a Theologian by Felicia Masonheimer. This I read with the Revive Christian Book Club. It was Just so good. It just goes through the basics of Christian theology. And I would share, things from it, but I can't because there's too many notes. There's too many things underlined. There's too many things that were meaningful to me. I might do a deep dive on it in here someday, but for now, I'm going to say that I think that every Christian should read this, not just women. It was really affirming of my theology. It was really helpful in my learning of some of the things of Christianity, some of the tenets of Christianity that I'm still trying to really get a good feel for. And I loved the way it was written. I think it was a fantastic book. And the discussion that we had for it was so great. 2 hours of discussing it, and it could have gone longer and I would have been fine. It was just so good. I also read Following Christ by Charles Spurgeon this month, and this was really, really good too. I'll share one of the quotes in here that I really loved. Scatter the blessing of God's truth as widely as you can. The moment you find the light and realize that the world is in the dark, take your light and share it with someone else. Be glad that you have the light yourself, but if God gives you a candle and all you do is lock yourself up in a room, sit down and say, sweet light, I have got the light while all the world is in the dark. Sweet, sweet light. Your candle will soon burn out and you will also be in the dark. But yeah, I really enjoyed the book. I saw a lot of people reading the Joy in Christ's Presence by him last month. And just from everything they've talked about, I really want to read that one now because I think I'll like that one even better than this one, but I really, really liked it. I also read Writer to Writer by Gail Carson Levine. And this I wanted to read to see if I could use it to give my daughter that wants to be a writer. If I could give this to her and it would just be inspirational to her. And I ended up putting this many book darts in it. And I'm going to use it as an actual semester course for her at the end of the school year of writing, because she not only talks about writing and answering questions, but she gives you prompts of things to write about. It was so good. I will probably do a lot of it myself as well. But over our Christmas break, I'm going to kind of write it out and plan it out and make it into a course for her. I also read Our Town by Thornton Wilder, the play. And this is a really funny one because for the first and second acts, I was just like, okay, this is folksy. It's, simple. It's quiet. It's not bad, but, nothing to write home about necessarily. It starts out with Emily as a teen. And then the second act is her marriage. And then the third act deals with death. That third act packed a punch. I had to change my entire view on the whole play based on the third act and how it ended. There were things that were said that I just couldn't stop thinking about. And in fact, that night, my mom and I went to a For King and Country concert. And on the drive, we were talking about it. She hasn't read the play, but she's seen a movie made of it. And we talked about it. And so I know that the movie is a lot different, ends differently than the play did. But we talked about a lot of the themes in this play at the end, and how one of the things that is said is that people are moving so quickly here on earth that we forget to stop and look at each other, and we don't fully grasp the wonderfulness of this life. I have thought so much about that because I think that a tendency with Christians is that we are living only for, what comes after in the eternity. And while that is something that has to be in the forefront of our minds, this isn't the end. This isn't what we were made for. I think C.S. Lewis says that. But we also were given a gift of life. And we need to be appreciating it. And we need to be living it in a way that shows that appreciation. And that play really, really emphasized that to me at the end. And so it was funny because I would have said if I was giving it a star, I probably would have given it like a 3-star or something like that when I first finished it. But by the end of that night, after talking about it with my mom and thinking about it more, it would be way higher because it really had an impact and made me think so much. So then after I had done my Read or Rid project last month, where I sat down and I decided to get rid of 2 books, and I finished a couple of books, I only had 2 more books to be able to have 20 out of the 25 read or given away. So I decided to try to finish up the 2 smaller ones. That might be cheating a little, but I don't know. Into the Unknown by Matthew A. Henson, Jacob Bull, and Bernadine Bailey. And this I had very mixed feelings about because I think the stories are interesting, but I feel like the writing is extremely dry. And I feel like that with a better edition of any of these stories, these could have been really exciting stories. So that one I wouldn't give a high rating to, but I'm not going to get rid of it because it could be something interesting if somebody ever needs to find information on one of these people that are in here. It's 3 different stories of 3 different Arctic explorers. If we ever want to reference back to it, we'll have it, but I wouldn't read it again. And that's unfortunate because I actually gave a copy of this to my mom as a gift a few years ago, and that's not as good as I thought it was going to be. And my mom watches these, so sorry, Mom. I hope that you enjoyed it. Like I said, I don't think it was terrible. It just was a lot more dry than I expected. Okay, and then I read Patterns on the Wall. And this tells the story of Jared Austin, and he's an artist. It talks a lot about art in this book and how they created the colors. I thought this was really good. It wasn't my favorite book ever. It wasn't something where I walked away going, okay, I'm changed and I can't wait to read more by this author. It was good. And the last book I read in November was Julie Klassen's The Ladies of Ivy Cottage. I read the first book in this series probably 2 or 3 years ago, and I hadn't got around to buying the rest of them. And this year I did. And so I was finally getting back into it. I really liked it. I feel like this book could have told a story in about 100 less words or 100 less pages, but I still really liked it. And I do want to keep on with the story. And I hope that some of the things I want to have happen. But I do really like the characters, and I love Julie Klassen's writing. She is one of my favorite authors. So I am excited to keep going with the series. In fact, the third book I was really hoping to finish in November so I could get to the next one that was a Christmas one, but I wasn't able to, so that you'll see that in a minute. Those were my November books. It wasn't quite as much as I read in October, but it actually ended up being a lot more than I thought it was going to be because we did have a lot of sickness during November in our home, and I was kind of out of commission for a while. So I'm still very happy with what I was able to read. So now I'm going to share what I'm going to read in December. I don't have these in here with me, but my daughters and I for school will be finishing up our book about Martin Luther and our book about William Bradford. Those, again, were supposed to be finished. Martin Luther was supposed to be finished before the end of October. William Bradford was supposed to be finished before Thanksgiving, and we didn't do that with either one. But we are hoping to finish those before Christmas break in a couple of weeks. Our family read aloud at night. Last night, we just started Fellowship of the Ring. And this is a reread for me, and I'm pretty sure my oldest daughter read this a few years ago, but my youngest daughter has not, and I'm not sure that my oldest daughter was old enough when she read it to fully understand a lot of it, so I think it's going to be really fun to go through the series together. I'm planning on reading the book and watching the movie, and then reading the second book, watching the movie. And I don't know why I felt like reading that in December. I think when the movies were first coming out, we watched them around Christmas time, and so it feels like a Christmas type of book for me, even though it's not. So I don't know. When my daughter was asking me, what are we going to read next? I thought, I want to read Lord of the Rings with them. So we're starting with this. We started it last night. We always get a new book on the first day of December. And yesterday we got this A Christmas Carol, the annotated version from Owl's Nest Publishing. I did talk about this in my bookish gift guide that we were getting this, but I hadn't got it yet, so I couldn't say anything about the quality of it. I absolutely love it. It feels really nice. It looks really good. We haven't started this story yet, but the introductory information was so good and so interesting, and I'm so into it already. So I'm really excited to read this with them. We're probably going to read this one on Sundays and break it up between all the Sundays leading up to Christmas, and then the Fellowship of the Ring on the other days of the week. But I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's kind of the plan at this moment. It also came with a really cute bookmark, so that was fun. Oh, and it came wrapped already. And since I put it in a pocket in our Advent tree that I will show in a Christmas traditions video, I didn't have to do it. They did the work for me. I just stuck it in there wrapped already, so I didn't even see it until last night when we opened it. In my morning reading, I'll be continuing with my own reading of the Bible and a book of James, a book study by John MacArthur that I do with Ashley at Grace and Grits membership. But I'm also going to be continuing with the Christian Mythmakers. I started this a few months ago, but then I had to stop it to read some other things. And so I'm going to be trying to get back into this in December. And in school with our Bible study, we're going to be starting Great for God. This is by David Shibley. It goes along with the Bible study we're doing right now. And we won't be reading the whole thing in December, but we'll be reading parts of it. And then for my just for fun, just me reading, this is the order I'm planning on reading these books. Right now, I just started this yesterday. I'm reading The Mistletoe Countess by Pepper Basham. And so far, I'm only a few chapters in, but I'm really enjoying it so far. And I'm trying not to spoil myself on it, but it sounds like she's going to be somehow ending up with the boy that her sister is supposed to marry. But that's not as bad as it sounds because it's an arranged marriage that they've never met. So I'm not sure. It sounds like there's going to be a murder mystery of some kind in it. I don't know, but the girl in it, she really reminds me of Anne Shirley so far. And so I'm enjoying it. I hope it stays as good. And I've enjoyed Pepper Basham, but I've only read a couple of her books now. So I'm just really hoping to enjoy that. And then I'm going to read A Cross-Country Christmas by Courtney Walsh. Again, I'm not going to read the backs of these because I am trying not to spoil myself on all the stories. I know that's weird, but if I get it from a recommendation, then I don't always read the back. I usually only read the back if I'm in a bookstore and I'm trying to decide whether to buy something and I haven't ever heard anything of it. That might just be a weird me quirk. I've heard enough people say that this was one of their favorite Christmas books that I wanted to try it. And again, that's Courtney Walsh. That I didn't completely love the fall book, but I'm hoping that I will like this one better. And then I have another book by Pepper Basham, The Christmas Clue to Finding You. And this is super teeny, so that'll be next. And then I have another Courtney Walsh, A Match Made at Christmas. It says a Nantucket love story. And so again, I really hope I like her writing. Another author that I've loved this year is Michelle Greep. And so I saw that she had some Christmas books and I don't know too much about them. It says Once Upon a Dickens Christmas, and 12 Days at Bleakley Manor is book 1 and A Tale of Two Hearts is book 2. And I saw one that said Once Upon a Dickens Christmas, and that was just the cover, and that was what intrigued me. But then I saw that it was a couple of different books. And so I think these are the 2 books that are in it. And I think that one's completely different, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So I'm going to have to try to figure that out. But I'm going to read book 1 and 2 first anyway and see, because the covers are very different than that one. But I just think the covers are really great. But I've loved her writing so much that I just think these are probably going to be great. And then another book that I have seen recommended, Holiday by Gaslight by Mimi Matthews. I'll be reading that one next. I love the cover of it. Yeah, it just looks beautiful. So hopefully that'll be a good one too. If I'm able to get to all of those before Christmas, then I'm going to try to get to the Tales from Ivy Hill book 3, The Bride of Ivy Green. This is the one that I wanted to read in November and I didn't, but it's also very big. So I don't know if I'll be able to get to it before Christmas, but I really hope I can, because then I want to read the Ivy Hill Christmas. It's not as big. So I'm hoping to get to all of those. Then I have one last book that I would love to read in December, but I don't know if I'll get to it because my Christmas gifts tend to be almost exclusively, if not exclusively, books. And I usually want to read my new books right away. So once Christmas is over, if I've hopefully gotten all the Christmas reading done, if it's all the way to Christmas by then I might not pick up any other books that are not my brand new ones, but we'll see. But I have this book, The Fifth Avenue Story Society by Rachel Hawk. And I am going to read the back of this one because this one I picked up because of the blurb on the back. It says, when 5 New Yorkers receive an anonymous, mysterious invitation to the Fifth Avenue Story Society, they suspect they're victims of a practical joke. No one knows who sent the invitations or why. No one has heard of the literary society, and no one is prepared to reveal their deepest secrets to a room full of strangers. Yet curiosity and loneliness bring them back week after week to the old library, and it's there they discover the stories of their hearts and the kind of friendship and love that heals their souls. I think that just sounds so good. So I'm going to try to get to that. I might even read that after Christmas, even though I get other books. I don't know. We'll see how this month goes. I'm hoping to be able to read a lot. We only have a couple more weeks of school, and in December we actually try not to be going here and there and going to a million places and doing a million things in December. We try to really be at home and enjoy it. And so I hope that means I'll have a lot more time to read than I did in November. So I hope I can get to all of those. So let me know if you've read any of those books that I read in November or the ones I plan to read in December. And let me know what you're going to be reading in December.